Hello, Dom.
Alex, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Fantastic. Let me make my screen a little bit larger here and
Okay.
get this happening here.
So
Good,
how are you?
good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am fine in my studio here.
It's fantastic.
This is a fun studio I've got. I've got a monitor in front of me
Mm-hmm.
that I teach with all my students. I've got to my left a big computer screen here. I've got to my right my laptop computer
Oh,
here to do
great.
research here, and
So you are all set up correctly.
every morning I'm all set up, and I've got this set up too, Alex. You'll see we can get into it later on. When I come back, when I teach on the practice pad,
Mm-hmm.
I sit in this position, and we talk about, practice pad techniques,
Yep.
so we can play here. And then I've got all my books here. And then over here, I've got different camera angles that I
Wow.
have here. So I can have this camera angle, and I've got a screen in front of me here so I can see it. And I've got a foot cam here. I've got that. I've also got a close-up of a foot cam here so I can have this. I can have that.
So every angle possible, correct?
I've got an overhead. Yes, sir.
Great. That's fantastic.
This is my fun setup I have here, and it's great the way it works.
Mm-hmm. And I see your beautiful dog here also.
Yes, this is my little girl. Her name is Emmeline. Come here, Em. Her name is Emmeline, a rescue,
Oh,
and she's at my side all the time.
she's gorgeous.
And she just kind of sits there, and she's in my studio with me all the time. And she's got a little bed over here, and she hangs out. She's a rescue dog. My wife rescues dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and this little girl, when she came in, we decided to keep her.
Mm-hmm.
And she hangs out here, and she just kind of.
She's very cute. And I think she adds a very positive vibe to the studio, correct?
It really does, man. She adds a wonderful spirit to the studio, and she's just a good little girl. I'll let her come down here. Go down
Mhm.
there.
Great. So, Dom, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Woodiments vidcast. It's a great pleasure and honor. You are a man that literally needs no introduction. I really admire the enormous passion you have for drumming and music. And you are one of the most sought clinician and a unique motivational speaker. From where do you draw your energy to do so? I mean, how do you get so motivated to do all these wonderful things you do, to be a global ambassador of drumming?
Oh man, well, Alex, thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to have time with you. I have been to Greece many times, and I love it there, and the people are always fantastic, and I look forward to returning. It's kind of an interesting life, Alex. I did not plan any of this. This was not my plan. My plan was just to play drums with bands and play locally in the area of New York where I live, and just have fun playing drums. But passion took over.
Mhm.
And when passion speaks, we have to listen to our passion because it is a driving force. It is a strong desire. And I had this desire to want to learn. So as I kept on finding different teachers and learning, more information came my way. I had the passion to practice. I continued to practice.
Mhm.
Nothing in my drumming life came easy. I had to work hard for everything, so I practiced many hours.
I think that all great things in life come very hard, correct? I mean, you have to work for it.
Well said, Alex. Everything I say, nothing is easy and nothing is free. And we have to work hard for anything that is good in our life. So to me, it was a matter of continuing pushing myself and having fun along the way. The fun factor is a very important part of this journey. That life, for me, I realize is very short. It goes by very fast. And I wanted to make the most fun, and music is a powerful language. It reaches people everywhere on this planet. It's the language that is the universal understanding of an emotion. And with that, I just continued my journey, and it just kept on growing and growing from where I lived to different countries and different cities and villages. And Here I am now at almost 68 years young, still doing it and still having fun. And I tell people, I am having this much fun in my life, in my career, on my way down.
Well said, yeah. You are a renowned and legendary teacher with students from all over the world. What is the importance for a young drummer of having a mentor? Is there a difference in your mind between a drum teacher and a drum mentor? Or should these characteristics be met by the same person?
Boy, excellent question, Alex.
Thank you.
I really believe there are some people that only teach, they disseminate information. They take a piece of information and they share it. And it's very academic. It's very by the book. I don't teach that way. To me, the understanding of teaching is to find out what that student wants to learn, what's their goal, and what do they want to achieve. And my responsibility as an educator is to try and make that path the most amount of fun for that student so they can achieve the goal that they want and enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
The journey has to be fun. Oh, it will be difficult and there will be many hours of practice, but it should be fun. When I worked on books like Stick Control, it challenged me. It made me push myself, but it was always fun. So to me, a teacher has to really understand what mentorship is. And mentorship is to guide someone to achieve the path that their heart is telling them they want to be at. If the goal is to play in a band and just jam with some friends, that's one goal. If the goal is to become a professional musician, that's another goal. If the goal is to just learn drums so you can be home and play along to songs, that's great too.
Yeah, of course.
If the journey can be fun and the journey can be knowledgeable where you feel like you're still learning, then that's a part of the responsibility of what a mentor would do, to guide that person physically with the techniques, spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually. Those four areas must be balanced.
And I imagine it's a very difficult thing for someone to balance all these factors.
Some people, you're right, some people it's more of a challenge because they're a little bit lost and they don't exactly know who they are. So what a mentor does, it helps them to find out who they are, and then it helps them to fine-tune their goal.
Yeah.
That to me is a part of the journey. And I started teaching when I was 17 years old. I am now 67. So that has been 50 years of teaching.
Wow.
And I have learned so much about people. Drumming is one thing. I've learned, of course, a lot about drumming, but I've learned so much about people and how they think, how they learn, how they feel, and my responsibility to lift them in every lesson. That to me is very important.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned about the learning process, and you mentioned about stick control. The tools that drummers have nowadays, numerically speaking at least, seem overwhelming. I mean, online drum schools, thousands of instructional videos, YouTube, books, DVDs, you name it. Do we really need so much? How has the learning process changed in relation to 30 or 40 years ago, or to the time you were beginning to play?
Oh boy, this is a fantastic question, Alex, because it has changed tremendously. But what hasn't changed is a student's desire to learn. Information keeps on coming. Many years ago when I was young, we didn't have that much information. There were only 3 channels on the television. There was on the radio, they were just playing popular songs. We'd hear the Beatles on the radio. And it was a much simpler time. Then a gentleman came to our house. He knocked on the door and he was selling books, encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And these encyclopedias had about 25 books that you purchased this entire collection of books.
Yeah, it is the half room,
Exactly right. It was a big amount of books. And he came to our door, and my parents said, wow, there's a lot of information there. We'll take it. So they purchased all of these books.
Mm-hmm.
In our house, we sat in our house on the floor, and we were like, oh my gosh. We opened up one book about the letter A. Everything was about A. Astronauts, astrological studies, animals, whatever had an A in it, it was in that book. Then we went to the book B, and the book B had everything in the book. Oh my gosh. We were going crazy. There was so much information. And as an individual child, I was trying to read every book all at once. And I realized I was getting overwhelmed. I tried to take in too much information at once. So I stopped and I said, I'm going to take one book and read the book and understand it. And that's eventually what I did. And I read every one of those books and learned so much information. But there was a lot of information in there that I learned that was not useful information for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I had to learn how to look at all this information and take the information that I felt was going to work for me and that was going to improve me as a person and was going to make me happy in what I was learning. And I believe the same process has to happen now with the internet. And we've got social media, and we've got YouTube, and we've got, Google. We've got so much information. We have to look at the information and see what will be useful for us. So for a drummer, I would say, choose your goal, what you're trying to achieve, and find information to help that goal. Stay focused on your goal of what you're trying to achieve. Once you achieve that goal, then set another goal.
Yeah.
And then find the information that can assist you with that goal. And I think that's an easier way of taking information in.
And it's more manageable this way.
It has to be manageable, because if it's manageable, the information you learn, you will retain that and remember it.
Yeah.
If it's not manageable, you're putting all different ideas in your head, and at the end of the day, you won't remember anything.
Yeah. And you will feel sad about it.
And you'll feel sad, you'll feel frustrated, you'll feel overwhelmed, you'll start to get unhappy, and unhappiness should not be a feeling when learning music.
Yes, of course.
Music should be about happiness. Absolutely.
Seeing now your studio, online private lessons with Zoom, for example, especially nowadays, are kind of a standard. How do you compare this method in relation to being physically face-to-face with your student? How do you overcome the limitations of online lessons?
Well, interesting question. There are limitations in online lessons, but there are also limitations in in-person lessons. So, for example, I have always been teaching in-person lessons, but about 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago, I started teaching online. When Skype first came in, I started teaching because I had many requests from students around the world who could not travel to me, but also wanted lessons. So I started to open up the concepts of a camera and this kind of concept of video lessons. The advantage of in-person lessons is I can lean over and I can touch someone's hand and I can show them the movement by holding their hand. The advantages of in-person lessons are fantastic. But in an in-person lesson, they come to me and they have to sit on my drum set and maybe adjust it and not totally feel comfortable. So they're playing for me and it's not exactly their drum set. The advantage of the online lessons is I have them on a monitor in front of me and they are sitting at their own drum set. They are comfortable on their own drum set, so I can see them playing on their own drum set and how they are sitting, how they are tuning their drums, the location of their drums, the location of the cymbals, how they have it set up, the ergonomics of the kit. I can guide them along the way to help them with their own kit, and I cannot do that on the in-person lesson.
Yes, of course.
The other part of the Zoom lesson, the advantage is when someone comes to me for lesson, I've got many students that fly for lessons and they spend 1 week here.
Mm.
And we teach 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And they fly in a plane from a foreign country. They've come in from England, they've come in from Germany, from Greece. I've got students from literally, they've flown here, come in. It's a lot of money for the flight. They pay for a hotel, they pay for the lesson. It's a large financial investment. The advantage of the online lessons is the fact that that student now does not have to spend any money in the traveling. So they save the time. Even a student that drives 1 hour to my studio for a lesson, after the 1 hour lesson, they drive 1 hour back. That's 3 hours, 2 hours of travel and 1 hour of lesson. When I'm on the internet, there's no traveling. We sign on, they are there. So I tell them, you spent 2 hours traveling to me, now you have 2 more hours to practice. Oh boy, now we have more practicing time so we can move our agenda further by putting in more quality time to learn the instrument.
Yeah. Now that we are mentioning the instrument and the drum set and setups, the instrument was invented and developed as a concept in the United States. You have traveled all over the world, and as you mentioned, you have met and discussed with countless drummers. Do you recognize any different paths of drum set evolution across all these different countries? How do you see the instrument and its manufacturers evolving in the next decades?
Boy, another great question. You know, you are correct. The modern drum set was invented in America. And it was invented in America because all the different people that came to America that wanted a new life in this land of freedom, when they came here, they were looking for a better life. And when they came here to America, they found a better life. They were able to get land and work a job and experience what freedom meant. So it was the early musicians that were trying to come up with a music that could feel that feeling of freedom. And jazz was it, this jazzy, bouncy, exciting music. And Louis Armstrong was one of the first, cornet and trumpet players to start to create this jazz music. And it made people feel good. And the music was the expression of this feeling of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So when they began to play this music, at that time, it was only a snare drum, a person playing cymbals, and a bass drum player. They had 3 drummers in the band. Well, they wanted to only have 1 drummer, so the 1 drummer had to learn all the parts.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden the drum set, the bass drum turns, they invent a pedal, they've got a snare drum, so the modern drum set is created, which was exciting that 1 drummer now can play all of these different sounds. So at that point, they create this idea, and jazz creates this feeling, and then we evolve from jazz to bebop, to rock, to fusion music, to heavy metal, to hip hop, to rap, to grunge. All the music evolved to electric music, electronic music. All this now is still evolving. And the drum set still evolves. So what's amazing is as I travel the world, I've got students in so many different countries, and all of them are just fantastic players. And they've created a different idea for playing drums that their culture talked to them about.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in Germany, Klaus Hessler, phenomenal drummer, learned drums from Jim Chapin and myself. And in Germany, he plays open-handed, and he's evolved his drum set to a very different way in how he plays. So he's helped push the drum set. Thomas Hawke from the band Meshuggah in Sweden, another phenomenal player. I met Thomas many, many years ago, and how he plays and the way he thinks opened up the drum set and designed his drum set differently. So the drum set is a very personal instrument that evolves in many, many different ways, as there are many great drummers in Greece. George Kolias, who's a phenomenal
Of course.
phenomenal drummer. What he does and play is incredible. His feet technique and his concept of playing is brilliant. Panos, who's a phenomenal drummer. Panos Phenomenal drummer.
Panos Menyos.
Menyos, another one At
Yeah.
the art music school with George, it's unbelievable what Menyas is doing and how he plays. So, I mean, everyone has a different idea in how they learn. And Sturgos, my student who you had met,
Yeah.
another phenomenal drummer who was learning the instrument and understanding all the techniques. These are dedicated students that are just absolutely excited about pushing the art form forward. And from their country and their culture and their language, they are adding different elements to the drum set. So now, globally, the drum set is evolving.
Great. Great. Now, speaking about evolution and evolution in music, some say that the modern way of life pushes people to be more isolated. Furthermore, the pandemic has changed the way we interact, keeping us distanced. One of the most important factors of music and drumming evolution is close human interaction. How do you think these factors will affect drumming and music in general?
You know, it will have some effect. People are experiencing a very different time of lack of socialization because of the pandemic, and it's been very frustrating for many people. I used to travel to 10 to 15 countries a year. In the past year and a half, I have traveled nowhere. I've been in my studio teaching. So it's changed the fact that when I meet people in person now, I really appreciate speaking to them and being with them. Because it was taken away from us for this time, I think there's a higher level of appreciation for socializing now, and we're going to understand that we need each other in this world.
Yeah.
People need people. I have a saying that says, we use steel to sharpen steel, and it is man that sharpens man.
Correct.
We all sharpen each other. So that level of socialization, as it comes back, is going to be very exciting. And I think people now are going to want to hear live music more so than ever before. So when the world gets back into the workings of socializing, I think we're going to see live music explode.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I agree.
More concerts, there's going to be more teaching lessons, there's going to be more of everything. People will appreciate what it is like to get together with other people.
You have talked and connected with all the great drummers and legends of our time. Do you see a common characteristic or characteristics that they all share? I mean, which common element would you say that they all share that bring them to the top?
Boy, good question. I think there's two elements that I notice common with all the great drummers. And I have been very fortunate in my life that I've had the chance to meet and know all these great drummers. I got to know Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Joe Morello, Papa Joe Jones, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Philly Joe Jones, all these great players that in my life, because I live in the New York area, I was able to meet them and hear them play several times and talk with them and even have some lessons with them. And incredibly exciting. And all the modern day players now, the Steve Gadds, the Vinnie Colaiutas, the Dave Weckels, the Billy Cobhams, the Dennis Chambers, the Jack DeJohnette's, the Cindy Blackman Santana, all these people, Brian Fraser Moore, Steve Jordan, all these players are just great players. And I know them all. And by talking with them, there are two things that always comes out in every conversation. Number one, their passion and desire to play music is very strong. Music is very important to them, and every day they are motivated to want to play music and share their music. So I think passion is number one. I think number two, the other part of it, is that all of them, even the past drummers that are no longer here, they all had a strong desire to be a constant student. They always want to learn. It's unbelievable. Steve Gadd just came out with a new drum book called Woodiments.
Yeah, I know.
He was practicing on his own and just kind of figuring out some patterns. Heard some of these patterns, liked the way they felt, started writing them out. that turned into a book. So during the pandemic, Steve Gadd delivered us a book that I'm still going through, and I'm loving every page of it. So the desire to want to learn means that there's no end. There's always something more that can help us to, improve our understanding of the instrument, and that passion combined with the desire to learn.
And of course, it is a consistent, correct? There is a certain amount of consistency.
It is 100% consistent. It is every day. It is every day, every hour. That passion fueled with that desire to learn. Then when you share that and you give it away, you now have that passion comes back at you, and there's even more of a desire to learn. So that's a cycle of fantastic energy that all of these great drummers have. All of them, just absolutely fantastic.
How hard, professionally and financially speaking, is it in our times for someone to dedicate his life to drumming and become a session drummer or a band drummer? For example, I know a lot of players that are really great at what they are doing, but struggle to support themselves or their families through the life of a dedicated drummer. Are we drummers maybe too many now, or has the music industry shifted so much?
Oh, interesting question. I think there are still many ways in which to monetize and make money in music. And I think in today's time, we have to think differently. If we think only about playing in bands, that's one aspect now. There are many drummers today, young drummers, who are on the internet, on their YouTube channel, playing cover songs, and because they have millions of followers, they put advertisement on their YouTube channel, and they're making very good money per month from their YouTube channel. So now the world is shifting to a different area. A lot of these drummers that I notice do not play in bands. They just are YouTube stars. They're YouTube, they're famous on YouTube, and people watch them, and they watch the advertisement, and the advertisement pays them money. And there are musicians that are making $50,000 to $80,000 US dollars a month. A month.
Wow.
This is big money. So
yeah.
there's another way to monetize and make money in the industry. So it's not just playing drums with a band. It's not just doing recordings. It's not just teaching. It's not just writing books. And it's not just on the internet. I believe it's all of that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what I do. I play with some bands. I do some teaching. I do some master classes from my studio. I do some clinics. I write drum books. I do a couple recording sessions here where I play for tunes that people send me. I've got my YouTube channel. I've got all of this going on. And all of that now has changed, where when I was younger, back in the 1960s and early 1970s, I just taught a couple students and played in many bands, and I was able to make good money. Well, if the world changes, I must learn how to change with it. And if I decide I do not want to change with it, then I will completely fail. So I think the most important part of that is the dedication to commit to change and adapt to where the world is at and enjoy the journey of the new world that we are in now.
Correct, I agree. And in relation to my previous question, you have founded the sessions, a very, very interesting project dedicated to, quote from your website, and I love this, provide the bridge between dreams and reality, I love it, by enriching artists' lives through education and sharpening their business skills. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and what is the feedback from musicians and attendees you had so far?
The sessions panel on YouTube is a phenomenal adventure because it's helping people out and it's inspiring people. And the object was started by an organization that I'm involved with. And Jules Follett is a woman that had this vision to allow me to interview people to capture their story. We sat down and I said, it would be great to interview these people, because if we capture their story, that can inspire people, and the future generation that might not know who these musicians are can have a resource of information from past musicians. So we started to interview many, many artists. And when I interview the artists on the sessions panel, it's kind of interesting, because I'm not asking them about the techniques of how they play the instrument. I want to know the bigger picture.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like flying up 35,000 feet and looking down at the world. I want to look at the bigger picture below me and see what inspired them. How did they learn? How did they build their career? What motivates them? What are some of the things that they did that helped them develop their career? All these different questions, and when you hear them answering it, it is absolutely inspiring. I've got over 300 interviews, and I've sat down with some of the best musicians in every instrument. On drums, oh my gosh, the Steve Gadds, the Vinnie Colaiutas, the Dave Weckels, the Steve Jordans, I mean, Billy Cobham. I've sat down with them and heard their story, and each of their story, Jack DeJohnette, each of their story was just so inspiring to hear, and you can feel the passion, and you can hear them speak about they are a constant student.
Yeah, this is happening right now, with us.
You can hear the intensity of capturing their story and their enthusiasm, that as I'm speaking right now, anyone that is hearing my voice or even seeing my image, hopefully they'll understand that if there is great passion behind every action and thought that you have, there will be a successful life that will be delivered to you.
Yeah.
That's something what you have to earn. So the sessions panel, my gosh, I had the chance of interviewing the great Chick Corea. Unbelievable. It was one of my favorite interviews. Steve Vai, the great guitar player. Leland Sklar, the great bass player. Nathan East, the great bass player. Billy Sheehan, the great bass player. My gosh. And many, many people that are no longer with us. Hal Blaine, who was a very famous drummer back in the 1960s, who recorded all of the different songs that were on the radio that everybody became famous in the 1960s and 70s. I interviewed him. A year later, he passed away. I had the chance of interviewing Jabbo Starks and Clyde Stubblefield.
Wow. Yeah, I have seen this wonderful interview.
Brown. Oh, these guys.
Yeah.
The respect and love they had for each other was beautiful. And just a few months after that interview, they both passed away. So to capture, that was the last interview that they gave, and it was the last interview that they gave together.
Yeah.
Capture that and hear that. I want people to hear and feel the emotion behind every word that they spoke. This is huge. And we're capturing that for future generations, which is exactly what we're doing here.
Correct. And now for another type of question, this vidcast started as a rudimental, vidcast. And so this is a question about Rudiments. I saw a video you made for the Wilcoxon Facebook group where you played the rudimental solo from a Wilcoxon book. It was fantastic. What is your opinion on rudimental drumming? Do you think that drumset players should study at least a bit rudimental drumming?
Boy, the drum that I played on is a drum actually that I have in my studio. It is a drum that Sanford Moeller played. And Sanford Moeller actually designed the drum. Actually, I have the drum right here. Hang on a second. Let me get this here.
This is a very, very, very beautiful snare drum.
Isn't this great? This is a drum that was actually designed and played by Sanford Moeller.
Wow.
The company was called.
It's a piece of history,
This is a you are correct. This is a very deep piece of history, and how this happened was, many years ago. Moeller died, I think, in 1959 or 1960, and he died in his 80s. And he was a wonderful, dedicated snare drummer, and he designed these drums. He wanted a drum that was 17 inches by 17 inches, kind of like a square box round. And in this here, he wanted this drum because he wanted to have this kind of a sound that was best for him. So he designed these drums, and the Cooperman Company, which was a family of drummers, made these drums for many, many years. They had their company for almost 200 years within the family of making drums here in America. And this drum has cat gut for the snare, which is animal, the cat's intestine, and it's dried out and used. That's what they used years ago. It's got calfskin head, so this really is an old drum. And when Moeller had died at that time, his best student was Jim Chapin. So the Cooperman Company felt that Jim Chapin should have a snare drum that was best to carry on the traditions of Sanford Bowler. So the Cooperman Company gave Jim Chapin a snare drum. Well, when Jim Chapin passed away in 2000, I think it was 2010, when Jim passed away, actually, no, he died in 2009. When Jim passed away, the Cooperman Company called me up. And they said, Dom, we understand that you are one of the top students of Jim Chapin, and you're carrying on the tradition of Moeller. We want you to have a Moeller drum. So they sent me this drum. And it really is just a beautiful drum. I'll play it in traditional grip, which is how they played this years ago. And this is what it sounds like.
Yeah, wonderful playing, wonderful sound.
It's a beautiful drum, and it really has a great history in it. And these older great players helped us to formulate the art form that we have now. So to play this kind of a drum, it's a part of the tradition of keeping the workings of our art form alive even now in the 21st century.
Yeah. And one last question. I don't want to take much of your time. You have achieved so much in your career, involved in so many different projects, traveled around the world, inspired drummers, built a huge network of people, and practically defined new terms like global ambassador of drumming. So what are your goals for the future? What would be the next logical step for Dom Famularo?
Boy, this is a really a great question. Alex, I have met so many great people in my life, and it has been such a reward for me by meeting these great people. We mentioned George in Greece, Panos, Menos, Burgos. Each country, I've got so many wonderful people that I meet that are just great people, and just they inspire me. So for me to continue, I've got 2 more drumming books that I'm working on that will be coming out later on. I've got ideas for more drumming books that I want to come out. And because I've got all this reach globally, I find ideas that I believe are needed. So when I find an idea that I think is important, get the book out and put this out. And I'm putting this book out with association with many students of mine. And, it's kind of exciting to work with these students of mine to help me write these books. And there's a book that's coming out soon called Accenting the Weaker Side. And I'm working on that with a wonderful female drummer from Brazil, Nina Para, and Stephen Chamberlain, another young drummer from Quebec, Canada. So I've got all these books that I'm working on with people from around the world. And that's exciting for me now to take this next generation and give them a step into the future. So when I'm long gone, they will be able to carry on with a lot of these messages. Now, I'm just still inspired. I'm working on several more books. Like I wrote a book called The Cycle of Self-Empowerment,
Yeah.
which is a teaching kind of a teaching kind of a book here. And what's funny about it is that it's inspired me to write the book, but now I'm inspired to write 2 other books like that. I'm writing 2 other books like that, plus the drumming books. So I'm working on several different projects that I have here, and I'm working on a project now where we're raising money for World Hunger, where I'm organizing 100 drummers to play together to a song.
Wow, very interesting.
It'll go on to video. We are now actually starting to edit this. It'll come out in September of this year.
Looking forward to it.
It's for an organization called Why Hunger. And what we've done is we were able to get the rights to the Beatles song Come Together.
Wow.
What better
Wonderful song, yeah.
Come Together. And
100 drummers, you said?
we have 100 drummers of the most famous drummers in the world. And we have got drummers like Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, Steve Jordan, Billy Cobham, Brian Fraser Moore, Dennis Chambers, Cindy Blackman Santana, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden, Carmine Alan White from Yes, Jim Keltner, Greg Bissonette, Russ Miller. We've got the best of the best, J.R. Robinson. I mean, it is complete.
Wow.
All these
It's mind-blowing, you know?
It really is mind-blowing. And we also just recently got approval from Ringo Starr. So Ringo will be involved with this also. So having all these different drummers involved, it is an incredible story. They're all going to get together. They're going to play the song Come Together. We're going to mix this all together. And there'll be a donate button. And 100% of the money will go towards World Hunger.
A wonderful project. Really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. It's what's great about it too is the fact that during a time of COVID, during this pandemic, more people have not been able to eat. So we need to feed more people. So drummers getting together. So in a time where most musicians have not been working, even though I called all these drummers, they all said, yes, how can I help someone else in need? This
Wonderful.
is a message that I think is so powerful. And that's one of the projects I'm working on right now. So I've got more things going on. I've got more things to do. So I hope I can keep on going. The end of this, end of August, I will turn 68 years young.
Wow.
And I just want to keep going because there's so much to do.
Well, it's been a fantastic conversation. You are truly inspiring. I want to again thank you so much for this interview. And I really hope to see you soon in Greece. And, you know, talk together and meet with other Greek players.
That would be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to absolutely return back to Greece, back to Athens, where we go by and at the art music school, and there's just so much excitement there with all the students that are there. Mm-hmm. And I want to get to the island of Rhodes. That's where Sturgos lives.
Yes, I know.
I want to get there and see that place. Sturgos is a wonderful, wonderful young drummer that's playing very, very well, and he's got some great bands that he's playing with. It's exciting to see all these drummers grow and learn. So we'll get back there. We'll make sure we get together.
Okay, of course. Thank you very much again. Take care.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Right,
Bye-bye. Thank you.